Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this, the full Council meeting on Wednesday, the 23rd of October at 5 o'clock. The meeting is hybrid, and we do have participants joining the meeting remotely. It is being streamed live and stored for later viewing. I can suspend the webcast if I consider that it will affect the proceedings. A recording of the meeting will be published on the Council's YouTube channel. Any motions and amendments need to be moved and seconded as usual, and any votes will need to be by roll call, as we do have members online. I will be flexible within reason in the length of time people can speak due to circumstances. Now, moving to the agenda. But before that, I want to introduce a very important item, and very welcome at that too. Each year, the Council awards a long-standing volunteer with the Provost Award to honour them for their dedication, outstanding service and the positive changes they make for others, and names them as Citizen of the Year. I'm delighted that Sandra Douglas, our Citizen of the Year for 2023, is able to be here with us this evening as we take the opportunity to present her with the Provost Award. Sandra was named as Citizen of the Year 2023 for her work as the founder and driving force behind Back to School Bank East Renfrewshire in Spearsbridge, Thornliebank. This was set up in 2015 and is based on the concept of a food bank. It aims to ensure that children across the local authority have brand new school uniforms and all of the school essentials that they need, whilst giving dignity and compassionate support to their carers. Prior to schools returning this August, Back to School Bank East Renfrewshire helped almost 400 children to start the new school year without stigma. The fundraising efforts by Sandra and her team have ensured that this charity has continued to expand and become an essential service, and after receiving several nominations, it was clear that Sandra deserved to be awarded this accolade. Nominations for Citizen of the Year 2024 open this Monday, the 28th of October, and I'm looking forward to being part of the judging process again this year. The calibre of nominations we receive every year is always very high. There are so many hard-working and selfless residents like Sandra across East Renfrewshire who dedicate most of their spare time, and as some would say, most of their lives, to make a real and positive difference to the lives of people and children in their local community. I'm sure you'll all join with me in thanking and congratulating Sandra for this so well-deserved recognition and award. Thank you, Sandra. And Sandra, if you could please come forward so I can actually give you Thank you very much for that, and thanks Sandra and all your team. As you said, it's a team effort, but it has to be started, and that initiative has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Sorry to jump in, I forgot to mention.
That's great. Thanks very much for that. So, are any other members like to say anything? Councillor Bamforth.
Thank you, Provost. Sandra, as she said, I was involved from 2015 until last year. So when Sandra talks about it being a team effort, though, Sandra's a one-man band. Sandra's a machine. You know, her selflessness, her fundraising, especially the fundraising, she writes a fantastic application, and she encouraged all these. I mean, there are probably hundreds of them now, Sandra. All started by you, and then off you go. And the attention to detail and the amount of work that Sandra's put in over the past 9 years has just been phenomenal. So she kind of does try to minimise what she's done and what she started. It's pretty phenomenal. So I'm delighted that she won the Citizen of the Year. She deserves it thoroughly.
Thanks very much. Councillor Lundy.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Caroline said. I've been working across the office hall from Back to School Bank for the last 4 years, and obviously I have also seen some of the referrals, and the amount of stuff that is in the package, I don't think people quite understand. It's not just a school uniform, it's everything down to pencil case, to stationery, and all of those things are so important to the dignity aspect that Sandra mentioned. So I think I can't think of anyone more deserving than the award than Sandra.
Thanks very much. And I'm sure that speaks for all of us, and we could spend the next hour as well saying thank you, Sandra, for you and your team for all the work that you do. So in a minute I'm going to continue with the council agenda, but I'm sure that there's other things that you prefer to be doing than being sitting with this council agenda. So if you could please join with me for one more time to say thank you to Sandra. Okay, colleagues, I don't know if we're still being recorded. Have we got to wait till Leslie-Ann comes back in? We're all ready to go. Okay, apologies for absence. Are there any?
Apologies from Councillor Devlin, Provost.
Any other apologies? Sorry, who did you say the apologies were from?
Councillor Devlin.
Oh, Councillor Devlin. I thought you said Edlin.
No, Devlin.
All right, so are there any other apologies? No. Yeah. Councillor Buchanan?
Apologies from Councillor Merrick.
Okay, I think that's everybody then. Moving on to item 2. Are there any declarations of interest in any of the items? None indicated. Next item, item 3, there are 2 council minutes for approval. Minutes of meetings held on 11th of September and the 26th of September. We may agree those minutes. Agreed? Thank you very much, everybody. Item 4. Minutes of meetings for the period 11th September to the 8th of October. So again, I will read out the list. I'll go in threes, but please stop me if I'm too fast. So the council meetings have already been approved. So on to the Cabinet, Police and Fire of 12th September, Special Licensing Committee 17th of September, Education Committee 26th September. Audit and Scrutiny 26th September. Planning Applications Committee 2nd of October, Local Review Body 2nd of October. Then there's a Cabinet of 3rd of October, Licensing Committee 8th of October. Can we agree those minutes, colleagues? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 5, statements by conveners and representatives of joint boards. And I'd like to invite both Councillor Anderson and Councillor Pragno to make statements. Councillor Anderson, going in alphabetical order.
Thank you, Provost. I have a statement with regards to the culture and sport and leisure. The first part of it is about regards to tennis, and in September I attended the official reopening of the Crown Park tennis courts after their £40,000 renovation funded by the UK Government via the Lawn Tennis Association Tennis Foundation. It was attended by over 200 local primary school pupils who were led by the sports leaders from St Luke's High School, who were on hand to supervise play. I'd like to thank, obviously, the Active Schools and Gary McGonigal's team for doing that. The courts have undergone extensive work to ensure playability for years to come as part of a nationwide programme of investment, which is seeing hundreds of local authority tennis courts being brought back to life for the benefit of communities across the country, providing vital opportunities for children and adults to be active. There will be weekly Barclays Free Park tennis sessions. All equipment is provided, and the refurbished courts will host local tennis coaching, giving people the opportunity to get involved and learn to play. All of the courts are available to book via a booking app, and the new booking systems and gate access technology means it is now easier to get on the court by booking in advance to guarantee availability, and the courts are free to use. The next part of my statement is regarding the Summer Reading Challenge that we have, and each year, obviously all public libraries across Scotland support the Reading Agency's annual Summer Reading Challenge, aimed at children who are aged 4 to 11, and the Summer Reading Challenge encourages children to keep reading during the summer holidays. Children set a reading goal to read 6 books and collect rewards for reading anything that they enjoy. This year's challenge was called Marvellous Makers and was themed around creativity. Pardon me. As in previous years, staff at East Renfrewshire Libraries work hard to promote the challenge during the final weeks of the school term, and then throughout the summer working to help and support children and parents and carers to participate. Excuse me. With over 800 children completing the challenge, the number of participants per head of population continues to remain very high. Although the final national figures are not yet available, we anticipate that East Renfrewshire will continue to be amongst the top quartile in terms of both participation and completion. And my final part of my statement is to do with the staff awards. Councillor Merrick and I had the pleasure of joining the also fellow board members at the Trust Staff's Awards in the Dalmeny Hotel at the end of September. Staff were nominated for awards by their colleagues and recognised for outstanding performance in a number of categories reflecting the Trust's core values of professionalism, pursuit of excellence, teamwork, community and customer service. The awards were also made, awards were made for Young Employee of the Year, which was sponsored by Unison. People's Choice was drawn from nominations from customers and the public, and the annual Chairperson's Award as well. It was an inspiring and uplifting evening where we heard some wonderful examples of commitment and professionalism, and people going above and beyond their remits and responsibilities to make a real difference to their colleagues, customers and communities. The professionalism and commitment has been a huge part of the continued excellent performance of the Trust. And I'd like to take this opportunity to extend my congratulations to all the nominees and winners and thank them for their outstanding contribution to the communities of East Renfrewshire. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. I'm sure we all echo those sentiments. Councillor Pragnell.
Thank you, Provost. At our Integration Joint Board meeting on the 25th of September, we approved the audited annual report and accounts for 2023-2024. The IJB was pleased with the unqualified audit opinion. However, the key message remains financial sustainability, with concern over the current and ongoing levels of savings required. The latest revenue monitoring report shows a projected overspend of just under £1.7 million in total. The majority of this is against the NHS element of our budget. There was an update on charging for services for 2024-2025 and beyond, and a seminar is planned for the end of October to discuss this further, and proposals will be presented to Cabinet in December. We had a very interesting presentation looking at East Renfrewshire's results from the National Health and Wellbeing Survey, alongside the Director of Public Health working together to stem the tide report. The presentation was very well received and there was significant discussion with a suggestion to present to further groups. We also had the Child Poverty Action Report, which was recently presented to Council, as well as the Chief Social Work Officer's annual report, which is included in this evening's agenda.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pragnell. On to the next item on the agenda, item 6, Provost Engagements, simply for noting. Agreed? Thank you. Item 7, items remitted to the Council, pages 19 to 44. First one is interim quarter 1 Treasury Management Report for 2024-25, remitted from the Audit and Scrutiny Committee of the 26th of September. Kirsty Stanners, the Head of Finance, is in attendance and will be able to take any questions regarding this item. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Bamforth.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question on about page 35 about Maidenhill Primary School. There's mention of the cost increasing by £526,000. We already committed 2.6 million or thereabouts in September 2023 for the extension, which brings it, so I've got a couple of questions, which would bring that up to 3.1 million for 4 classrooms. Sorry, am I looking at the right page here? Yeah. It's just I'm looking there and I'm thinking, have I got this wrong? Page 35 of the Treasury Management, about it's under schools, and it's the capital. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Bamford, just give us a wee minute just to clarify if it's this one or the next item. If it's the 7.1 or is it 7.2? I'm going to ask.
Probably the item 7.1, I think, appears in the papers from page 19 to
sorry, I'll blame it on
page 31 or thereabouts.
I'll
double check that.
Apologies.
I think the point the Council is making arises in the context of point 7. Or item 7.2 on the agenda.
Okay. So will I wait till the next?
Yes, please. So 7.1, are there any comments or questions? No, none. So I'll move on to 7.2 and hand over to Councillor Bamford.
Got it the right one this time. Yeah, it was a question on page 35. I have got the right page about Maidenhill. The increase in cost of extension of 526,000. In October 23, a paper came forward, September 23, about the possible increase or the possible cost as an indicative 2.6 million, which would bring an indicative cost of up to 3.1 million for 4 classrooms. So my first question is, that seems quite a lot of money for 4 classrooms, 3.1 million. My second question is, in the September 23 paper, it's mentioned about design and...
Councillor Bamford, can I just stop you there? But please come in with your second question so we don't lose the sense of your first question. So if we can deal with your first question first, is that okay? And then come back, unless they're related.
Well, they are
All right, I'll let you-
related. In the other paper, it mentioned a design charge possibly of about 500,000. Now, my understanding when these schools were built, like Maidenhill, prior to that was St Clair's, Calderwood, and some of the high schools, there was a generic architectural design we used, so that they're all very similar. There's not much variation, and if I recall correctly, I would have to see if Barry could find the papers, a way back. One of the reasons for that was so that we didn't have to keep paying for architects and designers. So I just wondered, in that cost, there's 500,000 extra, 526 possibly extra, plus there's 500,000 included in that for design costs, which I don't understand why we're paying that if we have already done the generic design. I mean, Crookford, although we're not going ahead with that possibly, it's been deferred, the design of Crookford's already been done as well, so why are we now looking at possibly £500,000 design for Maidenhill that we haven't even started yet? Can I ask just my last question, which is, it's all connected, is it's mentioned it's developer contributions. Now, the developer contributions, if we knew, is that developer contributions that we knew about? Because why did we then say we would have to borrow 2.6 million initially if we knew there was 526, if there was over 500,000 developers contributions coming forth? Should that not have been 2.1 million? And if we didn't anticipate this, which we know we didn't, and there was a good reason for that, where was that developers? If we had to take that money from something else, those developer contributions were going to be spent on? I don't know if those are clear, but I can clarify if they're not.
Thank you very much. I'll ask Katrina Macaulay in the first instance if she could respond. Thank you.
Yes, first of all, to confirm the budget, I believe the original budget agreed that we're working to was 2.9 million, and we are at design stage, so we still do not have financial close in terms of a final price, but we've been advised to make additional provision, which is why we've come forward with the additional ask of £526,000 to make that additional provision, so that we do not lose any time between the final design and going to the market to agree and get financial close. It is critical that we get this project to run on time, and that has driven a lot of the decisions around the project. The project is currently scheduled to be on site from the start of the new year. It's currently going through building standards. In terms of the design costs, I don't have that level of detail with me to provide in terms of what the total provision for that is, but it's something I'm happy to come back and comment further on. The construction company that we're working with are the builders of the original school, so those are all standard designs, and we will work with that standard design, but it still needs to meet all the standards. And I know at the minute we're going through a whole fire strategy through our building standards, so we still need to meet all those standards, and we have to pay for that professional service. But I'm happy to come back and confirm on those design costs. In terms of the developer contributions, as I understand it, there was a reassessment of the catchment provision around the developer contributions, and we were able to identify additional developer contributions that could be used and could be justified in terms of the additional pupils that will be going to the school. I don't know if there's anything else that would be added, but I'm hoping that that will address your question. I'm happy to come back on the design detail if that is helpful.
Councillor Bamforth.
Can I just ask a further question? Well, just to elaborate on the developer contributions, so were they earmarked for something else? Because it's a lot of money. Have we had to cease something else or delay something in order to divert the money?
The developer contributions were for education, so they have not gone from another reason into education. They've gone from education, but as I understand, the pupils that are coming to Maidenhill are coming from a wider area, which has led to the increased provision that needs to be made, and therefore we're able to justify the additional developer contributions going towards this school. That's my understanding of the justification, but they have not been diverted for other reasons into the school. They are for education purposes.
Finished, Councillor Maverick? Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, can I just commend Councillor Bamforth for her questioning there. I'm sure if they showed the same level of scrutiny when they were in administration, they wouldn't be sitting where they are now, but thank you for that. Good.
Councillor Ireland.
Apologies, Provost, I'm still laughing from the previous comment there. I actually had a couple of questions, and Councillor Bamforth has actually ticked off a couple of those. There was a paper to Council on the 26th September last year, because I did a bit of looking to see where this had came up and what the costs were that were associated with it. So it was 2.6 million, though it did note that that was indicative only at the time. And there's a paragraph that does say the Council's Head of Accountancy would require to make changes within the existing resources of 23-24 capital programme to accommodate 500,000 of design and survey expenditure on the project in the current year. So I'm sorry if I'm going over this again, but I would like confirmation. Are we genuinely paying £500,000 for design and survey costs for 4 extra classrooms? And also, can you possibly just explain again what this extra £500,000 is that's added on? I wasn't quite picking up what that was. Thank you.
So, Mrs Macaulay again.
Yeah, so the project is currently at design stage, and we are moving towards financial close towards the end of the year, and it is critical at that stage that once we get to the financial close we can move straight into the delivery of the contract. If we get to the stage at the end of the design that the cost of that design is greater than we have made provision for, then we would require to come back to Council, and there would be a delay in appointing and awarding the contract. So there has been an advice to us that we need to make additional provision within the budget to ensure that there is no delay between the completion of the design and the award of the contract and the beginning of the construction. Furthermore, I can confirm that the additional costs are associated with some of the internal costs for the Council in terms of education internal costs, fixtures and fittings for the fitting out of those classrooms. So it's not all for the construction, and also for some of the internal charges that the Council experience, and that's what the additional 500 costs are going towards in terms of the overall cost of the 4 classroom extension. It's a 2-storey extension to the school, so it's quite a significant extension onto the school. And I'm happy to come back on the design costs. I don't have that level of detail, but I will come back on that. Thank you.
I wonder if Dr Ratta would like to add anything to what's been said so far?
It may be helpful just to say I think there's probably a conflation because the figures are quite similar. That the money that was put in September for 23-24 was to allow that initial work to start taking place, and as you noted, Councillor Ireland, the overall figure at that point was a best estimate, and essentially what we've experienced, and Council have seen this through a number of the papers, is the very high levels of sort of inflation that's associated with design at the moment and construction inflation. So it's just unfortunate there's a kind of conflation, I think, between those figures being very similar, but now our best estimate is that it's going to be up to 3.1 million, and we want to be able to progress it to make sure it is ready and that children can attend from August 25.
Councillor Ireland.
I want to say thank you very much for that, and I'll keep an eye out just for any future design costs, because it does seem quite large for the 4 additional classrooms, that cost, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you very much, Provost. I would like to ask if there's any particular reason why the detail of this General Fund Capital Programme report is not included, because typically in previous quarters when we've reviewed this, and you'll note tonight, Provost, there's always quite a lot of interest from fellow elected members interrogating these figures and asking questions in these figures. I simply note that the detail table at page 38, Appendix A, we don't have the detail of each individual project following on from that report. Now, we're talking £274 million worth of projects here, so yeah, I can understand why people would want to scrutinise this, myself included, but we don't have the same level of details in this report as what we've had in previous quarters. So I'll let you find the page, Provost.
What page did you say again?
It's page 38, Appendix A.
38.
Yeah.
So that'll give the colleagues a chance to get to the relevant page as well. Stephen, do you want to answer? Yes, okay.
Can I just check something? So
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, you know, looking at the June meeting, you know, we had this quarterly update, and following that detailed summary by... Yes, it is. Following that detailed summary by department, there's a breakdown, for example, within property schools of the specific schools. And I think that the question Councillor Bamford raised earlier, for example, would perhaps be better informed if that detail was provided as it usually has been in the past.
apologies, Councillor, for taking so long to get back to you. What I was actually doing there was I was going back and checking the cabinet paper that it's been remitted from. And I'm just checking that now. And in the cabinet paper, it has got the breakdown as you describe. I can only assume that when the papers have been put together, that those additional bits have been omitted in an error. It's not to hide them in any way, because if you go back and you look at the cabinet paper on the 3rd of October, which is why I took a delay there, because I was trying to go back and find the cabinet paper on the 3rd of October, those additional tables that you refer to are in the cabinet paper. So we'll make sure we get the full cabinet paper out, but certainly if members wanted to go back, we can either go and try and get them, or people can go back and look at them, but they are there, they're just not come forward, so apologies for that.
Or even maybe a link to it might be considered, but I'll hand back to you, Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate the explanation from the Chief Executive. Obviously, Chair of Audit and Scrutiny, I always welcome scrutiny of the detailed information, so I appreciate that update. I actually have a question of substance in terms of what's in the report. Looking at the categories here, I'm assuming roads, for example, would include the Oz Road project. Now, the last meeting of the Council when we considered the capital programme asked about that progress and if it was delayed or not, and obviously the information available at that time was that the project was not delayed. It's clear to see, looking at this movement in the previous quarter, that there hasn't been a significant amount of expenditure on roads overall. So presumably I'm reading from that there's perhaps delays with the Oz Road project, and was hoping someone could give Council an update on that. Thank you.
Can I ask Katrina Macaulay to respond to that? Thanks.
I appreciate the members' interest in the Oz Road project, and I'm very aware of the strong public interest in Oz Road and getting an update. I can assure you that the team at the Council and the project teams involved are working very hard to finalise a programme for the completion of the road, and we hope to be in a position to provide an update. I can also assure you that there is extensive work done on the site. I don't have the financial information on the spend, but my understanding is the project is spending well. So we are making progress on the road, but there has been ground condition problems. We've been waiting on additional information to inform the programme and the negotiations with the contractor. And as I've said, we're hoping to finalise that programme very soon and provide an update to the elected members and to the public.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other points or questions on that? And thanks to Director of Environment, Mrs Macaulay, for her responses so far. So, can we agree 7.2, the recommendations therein? Agreed. Thank you. On to 7.3, Housing Capital Fund, remitted from the Cabinet of the 3rd of October. Kirsty Stanners, Head of Finance, is in attendance and will be able to take any questions or points regarding this item. Are there any questions? None indicated. Can we agree the report? Agreed. Thank you. Item 8, the new East Renfrewshire Promise Board and delivering our corporate parenting responsibilities, pages 45 to 60. Raymond Pryor, who is the Head of Children's Services and Criminal Justice, is here tonight, as is Arlene Cassidy, Children's Strategy Manager, and can answer any questions. Or are there any points colleagues would like to put forward? I'll open it out now, if you could just please indicate. Thanks. Councillor Pragnell.
Thank you. It's just a comment on the paper. Prior to this meeting, elected members and council officers had a presentation by members involved in the promise, and I just want to thank Amanda, Katia, Caitlin, Tia and Reese for emphasising the importance of the promise, and I look forward to becoming part of the Promise Board, and I look forward to see how it develops in East Renfrewshire going forward, and just to highlight the importance of our corporate parenting duties, and it's something that we should all be taking very seriously. So I can't wait to see what happens next, and I look forward to being part of it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pragnell. Councillor Buchanan.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Again, Councillor Pragnell touched on the presentation that we had prior to Council, which was fantastic. I think it highlighted the huge successes that we've had with our Champions Board over the years, which has been absolutely phenomenal, and a credit to the young people involved in that board and the position that they are now in, coming back and presenting to elected members about the support, about what they have done within that group, and it is really absolutely fantastic to see that. I think this paper highlights the next step, which is not taking over from the Champions Board. That will continue, and will hopefully continue on the basis of that improvement that we regularly see and the success that it has had, and having been one of the leading areas in terms of the Champions Board, it's great to see that still being fulfilled. Where I would touch on in terms of the Promise Board is that should be an additional aspect to our Champions Board. The Promise Board should highlight the additional work, the additional partnerships that need to be built in order for us to secure success in the future for all of our children, but in particular for our looked after children. And I think this paper goes some way to taking that forward. The Promise is scheduled to end in 2030. In terms of that's when we hope that we will have achieved everything within it. The work thereafter will obviously continue, but I think this puts us in a very good position. I think it is the right measure to be taken forward to ensure that we can get all the additional work, all the other partners and silos on board in order to deliver and continue to deliver for our children and young people.
Thank you very much. Are there any other points or questions? Councillor Bamforth.
I just want to reiterate what's been said. The presentation was excellent earlier, and I want to particularly congratulate Raymond and Jen and Amanda for all the hard work they've done over the past, since I was on the Champions Board from 2017, looking back the way, not forward to the Promise Board, but the Champions Board, seeing some of the young people, particularly the ones that were here today, it was absolutely incredible thinking back what they were like in 2017, and it's just thanks to the hard work of Raymond, Amanda and Jen and all the things they've done to support our young people and their families to get them in the position they are now. And they were inspirational just listening to them today. They should be running the government. They were so good, so I just want to give my thanks to them, and good luck for going forward to the Promise Board and the new Champions Board. Well done.
Thank you very much. I think all the accolades, you speak for all of us. Councillor O'Donnell.
What's going on here? Is that working? Yeah, it is. I echo a lot of the comments that were made earlier at the presentation, particularly by the Champions Board members. Was very helpful, very insightful. But it was clear that we need to step up our game somewhat, and this proposed structure of the Promise Board will really help us get there by 2030 in line with the statutory guidelines. So I really welcome this progress, this report, and thanks to Raymond and Siobhan for the work done in preparing this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we agree the report and recommendations on page 45? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Going now to item 9, Chief Social Work Officer's Annual Report 2023-24, pages 61 to 102. And I'd like to invite Raymond Pryor, the Head of Children's Services and Criminal Justice and Chief Social Work Officer, to speak to this report. He will also be able to answer any questions or points that you wish to make following the introduction by Raymond. Over to you, Raymond. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. This report corresponds to the April 23 to March 24 timescale. As Chief Social Work Officer, I am immensely proud of our staff, and I hope this report provides a helpful insight into their work over the past year. We are committed to provide the best service we can to our residents, and to do so with trust, kindness, compassion and understanding. However, East Renfrewshire's Health and Social Care Partnership has faced the most difficult year since its inception. Our financial situation and requirement to make substantial savings led to our undertaking a voluntary redundancy scheme. Subsequently, many posts and roles have been removed from our structure. Another significant first was the introduction of the Supporting People framework to assess need and introduce eligibility criteria. In April 23, only those with moderate, substantial or critical need would receive support from us. Given the depth of saving required, however, by November 23, this was changed and agreed at IGB to only substantial or critical need being met. I offer these examples only to provide an understanding of the climate and pressure our social care and social workforce operates in while undertaking the various roles in social work and social care. This report also highlights the statutory duties and activities across the social work workforce in East Renfrewshire. It reflects what I believe, as Chief Social Work Officer, the high quality standard of our profession in the fields of children and families, justice and adult social work. Our residents and communities rightly expect quality services when they require them, and I am heartened that our workforce show ongoing commitment in delivering this. In the past year, we have witnessed considerable challenge and demand, requiring us to make savings and efficiencies, redesign and reduce our workforce, and pivot resource to ensure ongoing viability and stability. This will continue to be a challenge in the forthcoming year, and it will therefore be important to work within financial parameters whilst highlighting areas of potential or actual risk that could impact on the provision of social work and social care services. Any such risk will be highlighted to Council as required or requested. I would like to personally thank all our staff for their kindness, commitment, drive and professionalism in their delivery of support. I can personally attest that many go far and beyond normal duties of what would be expected to support our residents and keep them safe. This is particularly appreciated for managing this in an uncertain, challenging and complex space. Their values, actions and support continue to make me proud to represent them as East Renfrewshire's Chief Social Work Officer. I'm very happy to get any comments or questions.
Thank you, Raymond. I see a number of hands raised. I'll just take a note, but please let me know. So Councillor Edlin, Councillor Morrison, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Anderson, but just let me know as we proceed. Councillor Edlin.
Thank you, Provost. I have 4 questions. I propose to take them sequentially. My first question is in relation to page 70, paragraph 2. I note there's 2,560 inquiries, which is an increase of 47% from last year. There were 351 initial assessments, and a decrease of 21% from the previous year. Can you explain the reasons for that, please? It seems quite substantial numbers, quite a change.
Thank you, Councillor Edlin. I suppose I would differentiate just at the start from any that the request for assistance team is our team that deals with any inquiries that come through our initial point. That can be from any member of the public, professional or agency that comes in. So it's hard to substantiate what that would look like in any given time period, given it's the responsive service. The initial inquiries are clearly just the number of inquiries that come through to us, and therefore after that initial assessment, that would be the point where those initial assessments would take place. So there has been a decrease in the past year. I'm unable to substantiate exactly what that would mean, again because it would be dependent on just the number of referrals that we come through, and after that initial screening, where there was a need for more targeted support. So it's again hard to analyse that as to what that would look like in any given year as the numbers would come through.
So, for that reply, I'm taking it there's no social reason for this number, this increase.
I don't have the absolute detail. Yes, sorry.
We only have one microphone on the one side. Thank you.
Okay, my question, I don't know if you heard what I said there, but I'll move on then to my next question is page 81, which relates to the Supporting People framework. Now, as far as I can see, the HSCP have had, I think, £4.7 million worth of cuts imposed on them. And basically, I may be wrong with these numbers, but it's not far off there, I think. And we're now in a situation really of managing decline, where you've got to cut your service to match the money you've got. And there's no doubt that the overall effect of this is that there's going to be a decrease in the life expectancy of some of our residents because of that. And I think we should note that. And I'll give you an example of why I think that. I have a case of two constituents, husband and wife. The lady was getting carers 4 times a day, I believe. That was cut substantially on the basis that her husband would be looking after her. Both are extremely elderly, and her husband has certain medical problems. He's in his late 70s.
Councillor Edlin, sorry, it was just to obviously indicate we need to be careful about any personal information being transmitted.
I understand that.
Sorry, Councillor Edlin, it was just to indicate obviously we need to be careful about disclosing any personal information in the context of a public meeting like this. So I just ask you to be careful about any content of your conversation.
I anticipated this, and I will be careful. What I'm trying to say is, because her husband is elderly and looking after her, the strain of looking after her is affecting his health, and it will affect his morbidity or the age of life which he will have. And that is a direct effect of these cuts. It's happening many times. My question, and I want this to be noted, because our constituents are losing years of life because of these cuts. That is the bottom line, really. I understand you've got these cuts, but we've got to deal with them. But this is a consequence of this. I would like to ask a question based on that is, how many people now, because I know it's an ongoing assessment situation, have now had their care packages cut or reduced because of the new process, which has been, the process has really been brought in because a funding deficit has to be found.
Thank you, Councillor Edlin. Apologies again, it would be hard to find the absolute numbers in relation to that. But again, as you may be aware through the reporting through the Integrated Joint Board, that there have been very difficult decisions that have to be made. All our decisions are made on carrying out assessments on individuals about their need, and has been clearly has been agreed at IGB in relation to, as I said in my preface, about where we've had to go and where we've had to target resource to those in most substantial now and critical need. What we have done is work with our partners so that if there were people who were no longer in receipt of social care or social work support, they would be signposted onto other resources. And again, through the IGB, we've highlighted just the robust processes that we have in place, be it through talking points, be it through different forums that we have for our staff and for other partners to come together to explore these circumstances and situations for some people. So again, apologies, I couldn't give you a definite number of how many people are affected because I don't have that within the report. But again, it's just the context of where we are operating in. That again is highlighted overall just about the pressures, but obviously where we report that through to IGB and clearly here at Council.
Yeah, and my apologies if I've... My apologies if it implies any professional failure on your part. It's not. You're doing the best you can with your excellent staff, with the funding you've been given. But the process, what I'm trying to highlight for the record, is the effects this is having on the people that I'm elected to represent, which is very concerning. I'd want to go on to page 93, domestic abuse. I noticed that, I've not got this up on my screen just now, so I'll just go from my notes here, but there's been a 49% increase in that in paragraph 2. It's a frightening increase, 49% of domestic abuse incidents. Now, is this an actual increase in real terms, or is it a recording processes? In other words, have there been a failure to record earlier cases in years before, or is this an actual real increase, 49%? Because it's a very frightening increase. Or is this increase a reflection in the cost cutting of this, again, these cuts in finances? Has that had some effect in this increase, causing this increase? Could you explain a bit more about that, please? That's the last paragraph. Paragraph 2 and the last paragraph.
Microphone, Councillor Redland, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Redland. East Renfrewshire won't be alone in relation to dealing with increased referrals coming through in relation to domestic violence and domestic abuse. Unfortunately, we are seeing that replicated across other council areas and across the country. We clearly have processes in place to try and address that and target it. I think throughout the report you'll see that there's a correlation between some of the domestic abuse statistics that we have. We can see that in our child protection registrations too. So children who are affected by domestic abuse within their households, we can see that that's still a prevalent factor, if not the main factor, for children being registered. It's still overall a concern. We can see it also reflected through our MARAC processes, the multi-agency risk assessment conferences that we have for victims of domestic abuse. We can see referrals coming through there too. So I would like to give an assurance just about how seriously we as an HSCP take that through our Violence Against Women and Girls partnership, through our adult support and protection, our child protection forums, and we absolutely make sure we thread all the information that we have in relation to that, so that we are aware of what we are doing. There's something that there is a thread here that we picked up, or certainly it was picked up last year in the Chief Social Work Officer report, and again referenced within this year's report too. We buck the trend in East Renfrewshire in relation to our referrals into the MARAC process. So nationally, I think it's 10% of referrals that go into MARAC, and it's mainly from children and families, social work kind of referral agencies. That's the trend is bucked here in East Renfrewshire. I think it's closer to 33%, and that's because of the profile and the partnership working and training that we have invested in East Renfrewshire. So there's a better awareness of domestic abuse, which leads to further referrals coming in, which again it's concerning just again about the numbers of referrals that we have to deal with, but there is maybe something that we're capturing those who require the support better.
Thank you for that. I note from your reply that this is consistent with the pattern throughout Scotland, and I also note how much work you're doing in this, which is impressive. But could you give us an explanation for this huge number? I mean, 49% in children is a huge number, and in the adult cases, which is effectively abuse against women, it's 15 to 33%. It's huge numbers, and I'm sure our residents are concerned about these numbers. Is there a cause that you can say to us, this is happening because of this? Because a year on, one would expect the numbers not to be quite so exponential, especially in the fact that there's so much publicity about abuse of children, publicity highlighting abuse in children and women. So I find these numbers quite startling.
Thanks, Councillor Edlin. Again, in relation to the numbers that we have, I think we need to reflect and remember that that could be sibling groups that are incorporated within that too. So it may not just be individual children that are captured within there. And again, we know through the families we work with, and the families in particular, they may be coming through our child protection registrations, and through those processes that they can, in fact, be quite large families with large sibling groups within that. So again, that would be reflected within those numbers too. Again, I wouldn't be able to give a definitive answer as to nationally or why there are those increased numbers of referrals coming through, a variety of factors that may impact on that. I would just reiterate what I said. I think we have got the right processes in place and all our different systems in East Renfrewshire.
Participant is now exiting.
I am confident that our systems speak to each other through the adults world, which again wasn't always replicated in the past, so that the victims of domestic abuse, the children that are affected by it, and the overall family and the people round about that whole scenario are supported through our different teams and different systems.
Thank you very much, Raymond. And also I'd like to commend you and your staff for the excellent work you're doing in a situation where literally millions of pounds of your funding has been cut by the Scottish Government. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Morrison to come in with a point or question, but just to let Councillor MacDonald know that I've added him to the list of people who want to speak, and anybody else, just please let me know. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you very much, Provost, and thank you for the report also, Mr Pryor. My first question relates to page 77. The percentage of our looked after population who are unaccompanied asylum-seeking children has increased substantially since the new national transfer programme came in November 21, which we would expect to see. Moving from the year 22-23 to the last finalised year 23-24, that percentage has doubled. And the question I was simply asking is, do we receive funding from national government in respect of the national transfer scheme, and is it fully funded? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Thank you for noting the increase in relation to the number of separated children that we now support. We do get some level of funding in relation to our support that we offer from the Home Office. It's not fully funding what we are then required to offer in relation to support, again because all these young people have got their individual needs and circumstances. Again, I've not got the absolute detail of the numbers of the finances there that we receive, but it's certainly it's not comparable to the overall round of support that we would have to offer, given often the complexity and the presentation and profile that these young people bring to us when they arrive here in East Renfrewshire.
Thank you very much for that response. Happy for my second question, Provost? Yeah? Okay, thank you. The second question relates to page 88 and community payback orders. So it's really good to see that there's been 7,721 hours of unpaid work delivered. It's actually news to me because I didn't actually know that these activities were going on within East Renfrewshire. It'd be quite helpful, I think, to get some narrative around the kinds of activities and locations where this restorative justice is taking place in East Renfrewshire, because these alternative forms of punishment rehabilitation, I think it's still important that the wider community is aware and knows that justice is being served. Thank you.
Thank you again. Yes, I'm happy to present the degree of work. Probably wouldn't do it overall justice in relation to it. There's a variety of different things that can be undertaken through community payback orders. Some of that may be individual supervision of people who have offended. That may be different programmes. It may be quite significant and high-profile offenders in our communities who require interventions to deal with domestic abuse, as we've just referred to. It may be other more high-tariff offences that our teams have to supervise with, or it may be that the sheriff at court has decided that there still requires an intervention because it could be offending related to alcohol or drug misuse, with very specific conditions of how to address that. Some of the other parts of it would be about unpaid work, which people would maybe be more familiar with, about the old kind of community service approach of trying to rehabilitate people who have committed offences. We have a rich variety and programme of work within East Renfrewshire. We have managed to get people fast-tracked onto employment through their unpaid work, which is delivered by our staff, some of whom are retired police officers who have got a commitment and passion of supporting this group. We've managed to get people into different forms of employment, be it through joinery or other things. So there's a whole raft of things. It's not the traditional model that maybe people think of, painting and decorating or attending to gardens. As important as those things are, and we still do that, we are looking to give a wide and varied opportunity to try and intervene and get people to desist and ultimately stop from offending and bring something positive back into the community. And I would be more than happy on another occasion to bring more of a flavour, if that would be helpful, about the role and purpose and work of the Justice team, as I appreciate sometimes it can be a bit of an hidden service.
I simply reflect, Provost, I appreciate the answer, and I think all elected members would appreciate that additional information, and it does illuminate to the community that these alternative courses of action within the criminal justice system is still effective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morrison. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you very much, Provost. I don't actually have any questions on the paper, but I wanted to make a comment on it. It was something you said as you were talking about it. You said that you were immensely proud of your staff, and I started scribbling away because that's what came across to me when I was reading it. It was the amount of hard work. You've had such a challenging couple of years and a lot of big changes, but the amount of hard work that you're still carrying out in that, and the amount of lives that you're changing and residents you're helping. So I just wanted to say thank you for everything you do, and I'm so proud of you all as well. But it just struck me when you said that, and I thought it was such a nice thing to say. So I just want to say thank you.
I think that struck a chord with us all, Councillor Ireland. Thank you for raising that point. I'll add Councillor Bamforth to the list of people who want to contribute, and now Councillor Anderson, then Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Provost. Actually, Councillor Edlin, in his first point, the first question, mentioned really what I wanted to talk about, but you answered it, but I've also got more context now as a result of the briefing that we had this afternoon, because there was a key thing when we talked about scaffolding and talked about what the policymakers and what we can help with to build and deliver. And one key thing that was specifically mentioned, and I think that's the worry, is that the 47% increase, because it talked about early identification and response. That they mentioned that today, this afternoon. So the worry and concern is that because of that volume there, I know you've described the process more and we understand more about it, but I guess we want just reassurance that that intervention is still going to happen, specifically in the context that we were talking about this afternoon.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Again, thank you for noting that point. It's really important that we don't lose sight of early intervention. Again, we can refer and talk about our statutory duties and what we are required and must do. So there is a risk, and I suppose I was referencing that in my preface about, given the challenges that we face there may be risks, there may be actual or potential risks that we may face in relation to our service delivery. I would be absolutely hoping that we can ensure that we have our early intervention support where it should be. Our young people did a fantastic job earlier, and they were right to raise that. They were right to raise in the questions from members about edges of care and what that looks like. If we're not targeting it downstream and getting family support and getting that right support in at the right place, clearly it can escalate, and then we're just going to face more significant problems further down the line. So we absolutely need to target that, and I would hope that that's something that we could address and capture within the Promise Board also as well, that we referenced and spoke of earlier too, so that we can collectively ensure that we've still got that commitment to supporting at that earliest stage as we're required to do.
Thank you, Raymond. Just beyond that, also, the partnerships that are working that in conjunction with your team, and it mentions Children First, it mentions Healthier Minds. I think that, would you agree with me that that's obviously a key part of it as well, in terms of the framework and the support that we actually require. It's not just, and even the police as well are a key part of that partnership. I'm sure you would agree that for that intervention, irrespective of who actually starts the process, the key thing is that it does be. I agree. It does start.
Absolutely. And again, I know my colleague Siobhan McColgan's in Chambers also. This is obviously about the Chief Social Work Officer report, and it's about the social work and social care goal. But across the Children's Services Planning Partnership, that is absolutely about the partnership. And again, we're blessed, I think, in East Renfrewshire because of the strength of partnerships that we certainly have with education, with police, with all the other departments. Again, we heard about the close working relationship between social work and or HSCP, and housing colleagues and environment. So the partnerships are clearly the things that really make it work. They're the things that really deliver when we get that right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to invite Councillor MacDonald to speak, then Councillor Bamford, and I've added Councillor Pragnell to the list of speakers. If anybody else would like to speak, please indicate. Councillor MacDonald online.
Thank you, Provost. Good evening, colleagues. I just wanted to ask Mr Pryor and Mrs Murray if they have an answer as to what their assessment is of the block grant from the UK Government in terms of meeting the needs of Scotland's ever-increasing challenges, particularly around population growth and the increase of elderly population in Scotland, which increased year on year for the last 4 to 5 years and beyond. Scotland's population last in 2023 was the single largest increase in 76 years, and I just wonder whether the respective UK governments, despite the fact that they laud the fact that the block grant is the highest it's ever been, whether that block grant is managing to meet the needs of Scotland's ever-increasing challenges, of which HSCP is a large part of. Do you meet with your respective colleagues across the country, and what is the general consensus amongst you all as to whether the block grant is meeting the needs? Because my perception of things is that there is no magic money tree at the Scottish Government. They receive a block grant from the UK Government and it's a trickle down. So obviously, if year on year block grants are increasing, but not also meeting the needs of Scotland's ever-increasing challenges, is it a real times increase? Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald, it's not for officers to answer political questions, but as far as your general points are concerned, I'm going to ask Stephen Quinn, Chief Executive, to answer. If you could allow him to answer, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. As the Provost said, I don't think it's fair to put officers in a position to comment on grants that come from whichever government. What I can assure you is that of all our officers across the Council take the resource that they have, that is allocated to them, and they work to the very best of their ability to manage that resource as efficiently as possible. As to whether that resource is enough too much or otherwise, if, with all due respect, I will leave that to the members in the chamber to debate. Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald.
Well, I mean, I beg to disagree. I don't think it's a political question. It's just simply asking for the factual evidence that they have within the information that they receive in terms of what Scotland receives. It's not a political question. It's just merely asking whether they see a real-time increase on the block grant coming through. That's simply it. It's just a factual question I'm asking.
Councillor, thank you. In reference to grants coming into Council, as you will note from the revenue reports and the capital reports at the beginning of the financial year, that the Chief Financial Officer in the Council will make comment as to whether the monies that come in, whether that is, in our opinion, a real terms increase, a percentage increase or otherwise. But in terms of splitting that down again, I'll go back to it, that point is made at the beginning of the financial year, but I don't think it's for any of the officers within the Health and Social Care Partnership to comment directly on the grant that they receive, which ultimately is a subset of the total grant that comes into Council.
Are there any questions on any other issues, Councillor MacDonald?
None at the... Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now move to Councillor Bamforth and then Councillor Pragnell.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to go back to the domestic abuse figures. It's something that comes up, and Julia will know I mention it every time at the IJB, because sometimes the figures at the Police and Fire Cabinet and sometimes figures at the IJB are different. On the one hand, we want these numbers to go down, but actually on the other hand, we do want the numbers to go up, because we do want women and young and men and young people to feel confident enough to report current and historic issues. So I'm sure some of these issues will be either people having the confidence to come forward, but also your well-trained staff and education staff and other agencies being able to recognise. And I know the police have a specific, I've been to the one in the Command and Control Centre in Helen Street where they've got a specific domestic violence office. So I think we have to be a bit wary of being afraid when numbers go up. But what I was, I hate to say, pleased to see, and I'm encouraged to see the numbers of hidden domestic violence, because like with your social work and education, it's recognised when there are children involved, but as mentioned in page 93 of your report, 21.32% of victims didn't have any children, and in the past they would have been not visible. So I actually, on the one hand, I'm glad that these numbers have gone up, because that means these women and possibly men have been recognised as suffering, and you're able to put the support in. So so thank you for that, for recognising this. And I just want to make another comment about page 78 about siblings. I think it's incredible the work you're doing with siblings, about reunification of siblings and those that have been adopted separately and things. Your team, given all the constraints you have around staffing and everything else, I think it's incredible that you're working so hard, because it's something that you just don't think about, and it must be so powerful for these young people to actually have family that they perhaps became estranged from or didn't even know they had. So well done on that. I think it's another aspect of your work to be commended. As Councillor Ireland said, you're doing a fantastic job, so thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Pragnell.
Thank you, Provost. I just wanted, before Councillor Bamford came in, to echo what Councillor Bamford had said about domestic violence and domestic abuse. I think completely agree with what she said, and I know we've both raised this at IGB and at Police and Fire Cabinet, and I am confident that those who present as domestic abuse, from those who suffer domestic abuse and present to us, are being supported and are having appropriate interventions So I have no doubt, yes, it's quite worrying when numbers go up, but it's also, as Councillor Bamford said, a good thing because people feel they can have the confidence to come forward and they won't be judged on why they haven't come forward either before or if it is a current issue. I would just want to say this is a very good report, and it demonstrates the length and breadth of social work services in East Renfrewshire, and it's testament to the hard work of all those involved, and also our partners.
Hello.
And also our
unknown participant
sorry to
is now
interrupt,
joining.
Councillor Cragnell.
Sorry.
Councillor Cunningham. Just want to make
Yeah.
sure that you're on. You've joined the meeting.
I'm on now,
So
thanks.
yes, thanks. So I'm just going back to Councillor Cragnell. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very much. Sorry for the interruption.
Thanks. And this report is testament to the hard work of everyone involved in the service. And as always, thanks must go to everyone. So I hope you'll pass that on to all the teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell.
I'd just like to add to those comments. Obviously, this paper was discussed at the IJB, and I think for Council, this is a great report to see the breadth and depth of work that you're responsible for and your team is responsible for. And I think that's why you get so many questions, because it's only once a year that people actually have an opportunity to see that. But I think we have to commend you and the team. Clearly, volumes of referrals are going up, but you're dealing with such high demand and still delivering to a very high standard in very difficult financial circumstances. So I'd just like to recognise that and thank you and the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no further points or questions, just to, if Raymond would please take back all the appreciation and thanks and good wishes to all the staff and the work that they do in protecting people. Thank you very much. So can we agree the report, colleagues? Agreed? Thank you very much. On to item 10, and I just want to remind officers that if they're not involved in any of the ensuing items that they are free to leave. You know, it's a long day for you, and thank you very much for your attendance and your input. On to item 10, it's the brown bin, it's the garden and food waste collection proposal. And Katrina Macaulay, who's the Director of Environment, and Kenny Marwick, I hope I'm saying your name properly there, who's the Head of Environment Operations, are in attendance and can answer any questions or points on this paper. I will now open it up. If you would indicate who wishes to speak now, please. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Lundy so far, but please just raise your hands and I'll add Councillor Bamford. Thank you very much. So over to Councillor Wallace first of all. Sorry, anybody else? Somebody online? Councillor MacDonald's online, but I will pick up anybody else who wishes to speak as we go along. Just please raise your hand, catch my eye, and I'll add you to the list. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Provost. I just feel, I don't know about any of the other councillors, maybe had one or two emails coming through from residents on this one. The thing we have here is it's a very visual thing, and it's quite a kind of potent point when we're talking about garden waste, etc. But I think when we look at things in perspective of, Councillor Edlin earlier on mentioning about things like social work, etc., and a lot of that work that's carried out is very hidden and it's a lot of work that maybe residents don't maybe appreciate that does go on. So I'm trying to put this into perspective here. As you know, garden waste, this went through the audit committee mincer, if you like, in February 2023, yes? Yeah, it was nearly 2 years ago. And one of the reasons it went to the audit committee was because there was a perception that actually this was a profit-making work that has been carried out. And clearly all the information that came through at that meeting and through the paper here, it's actually quite the opposite. And I think what maybe is frustrating for many is that it is a non-statutory We do not, as a council, have to provide this service, but we do, and obviously a number of our residents have become very comfortable with the way that it has been carried out. One of the other problems we had was, or one of the other reasons as to why it did come to the Audit Committee, was there was a proposal to increase from £40 up to £60, and that caused a bit of consternation, a 50% increase. Nobody likes to see an increase. So, taking all that into perspective, and again, just what we're mentioning with the other pressures that are on with the council, particularly when we're faced with a £15 million cut that we're having to make between now and next February's budget. Whilst we don't welcome this paper, I don't think anybody welcomes anything, but what we do welcome is the opportunity that we're actually giving to the new management that we have in the Environment Department. I don't know what anybody else's experience has been, but any issues that do come up, they are dealt with very quickly. Seldom have I had a problem recently, and I feel sure that, I think what's interesting about this proposal is that we're not talking about an increase, we're actually looking at something else. Now, will it be viewed as a reduction in service, or will it be viewed in time as a more streamlined and efficient service? And only time will tell. But I think we have an opportunity here to provide the new team at the Environment Department to actually show what they're made of, and I'm sure it's a great opportunity for them to show that they can actually make this work. There will be problems, and there'll be some unintended consequences. There may well even be behavioural changes in how people are dealing with their garden waste. And then we may have problems with food waste, and do we have an increase in vermin? Will there be a change in recycling rates? Will there be a significant change in the number of people that actually pay for extra brown bins should it be required? But unless we try it, we won't know. And hopefully this is something we can revisit in time, give the department an opportunity to run with it. And as I say, I'm sure if there are any problems, the people that are involved will deal with it in the best manner they can. And as I say, hopefully we can revisit it in time. So, as I say, we don't welcome this, but we do welcome the chance for the new staff to do what they can do. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you very much, Provost. Like Councillor Wallace, and I'm sure everyone here, yes, I've had emails in on this particular subject as well. When I did see the paper at first, and I will be honest, I wasn't happy when I immediately saw it. So I went off and I did my own research on it. What came over right away was, and it's mentioned in the paper, yes, we are the only council that does weekly collections. Most councils do fortnightly collections. Some do 3-4 weeks, and some do now none at all, where it's prohibitive to actually carry out those collections. So the decision that's in the paper to go fortnightly, I found myself therefore in agreement with, because it is what everyone else is doing, and we at the moment are sitting as a bit of an outlier at the moment. And I will be honest, where I'm having a little bit of difficulty is keeping the figure at the £52.20. Because part of that research, I was looking at what comparable councils were charging. So I think now, when I meaned it out, those that only provide a fortnightly service, the average is £40 that they charge for the fortnightly service. So that's where I started to feel slightly uncomfortable, and I will be honest. So I did have a few questions around that. Had you considered lowering the cost to be more, or to give us more parity with the other councils who offer the same service? I know that other councils, and I know that we struggle as well, the numbers are below what we expected them to be, and this seems to be something that's came from other councils as well. There has been quite a bit of talk about trying to find the perfect figure so that you don't discourage everybody, or discourage too many so it doesn't make any sense with the service anymore. So that's where I'm sitting a little bit uncomfortable. So I wanted to ask, had that been looked at, thought about, so that we don't lose a large amount of people next March? Because right now we're the second highest in Scotland for the charge. I think it's only West Dunbartonshire that's higher at 60. So did anyone look at bringing us into a more comparable position with other councils? And the other question I had was, I really need a steer on this from the officers. I came across that as part of the Circular Economy Bill that is in place, there is something contained in that will allow the Scottish Government to look, now I'm choosing my words, to look at possibly making this a statutory service, because they're wanting to help encourage more collection of the garden waste. So, do any officers have any information on, is this going through, and if so, when? Thank you.
I'll ask the Director of Environment, Mrs Macaulay, to answer this in the first instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both members for their comments and for your question. So yes, we've done extensive benchmarking in the preparation of this report, and you will notice in the table in the report we're very much reflecting on current charges with other local authorities, and we are aware that most other local authorities who are already running 2-weekly and 3-weekly services are looking at the permit prices for 25-26. We have indicated in this report that there is no intention to increase the current price for next year. Furthermore, we looked at a cost per uplift and benchmarked that, and looking at a cost of £2 per fortnight for the collection of garden waste, we considered that to be very good value and still very comparable with other local authorities. So we do think that the service continues to be really well used and well supported by our residents. We have, over the years, with the changes in the permit price, continue to have a really good take-up of the service. Circa about 22,000 to 23,000 people buy a permit every year, and that's remained pretty consistent over that period. We get really positive feedback on the services provided by our waste operatives, and we do get letters in to say how pleased they are with the service. So we do feel that it's a good offer, but clearly it's not people aren't required to buy the permit. It's a choice that people make, and we would hope that people would continue to take up the service and would still consider it to be of good value at a £2 per fortnight cost. We are aware that there is the power now that the authority has, and we're aware of discussions that have been ongoing at COSLA around all of that. We would obviously expect that if this did become a statutory, that government in some way would recompense us for the cost of that service. So it is something that we're aware of, and we would keep a close eye and obviously contribute to discussions at COSLA and at Solace with our partners on that debate. But it is not a statutory service at the minute.
Finished, Councillor Ireland?
Yes, thank you very much.
Councillor Lundy.
Thank you, Provost. Whilst I agree with Councillor Wallace and Councillor Ireland that looking at it we do have quite good value for money presently, I do have concerns that because of the reduction in service levels, there will be less people taking the option to purchase their bin permit, and I wonder if you could go into more detail about what assessment's been made regarding the possible fall in terms of numbers of people choosing to purchase the permit. The other option that I've noticed that some councils have taken on is to reduce collections or have no collections in the winter months, and I was wondering if that was a possibility. I understand that we're currently employing agency staff and agency trucks to carry out the service, so I don't know if that is an option in this case, but I'd just like some more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lundy. So we do appreciate that some people may make the choice not to continue to buy permits, and that is a risk that there is. There's no compulsion on people to pay the permit fee, but we do believe that it still offers good value. So as well as the 25 uplifts, the service also collects Christmas trees in January as well, which is an added value within the service. And we have looked at sales of the permits over the last 5 years, and there has been price changes starting 5 years ago at £40, and there has been some changes over that period, and it has remained pretty consistent. We don't know what the outlook is in terms of what the impact will be. People will have that choice, but we would hope, given the good experience that they have and the popularity of the service, that sales would continue to remain strong. Your second question on winter, we would not achieve the same level. A number of options were considered, and we would not achieve the same level of savings as is proposed in this report, and in particular around vehicles and the cost of vehicles, which represents a significant portion of the savings that are there. So it wouldn't be considered as good a value.
Councillor Lundy? Finished? Okay, thank you. Councillor Bamforth?
Thank you, Provost. My question is about page 106, paragraph 20. My question, which is part of the question, my question is about why we're looking at this 6 months prior. Now, I understand in page 106, paragraph 20, you mentioned the lead-in times. However, the twice we've done this, firstly, the first time we implemented it when there was a lot more public communications, we had to set up the whole system, that, and then when there was an increase in price, they were both done as part of the budget in February. So I don't quite understand why we need or should be firstly making this decision so far ahead when we don't know what the UK government budget will be at the end of, well, next week. Or the Scottish Government budgets. We don't know what our funding will be. It could be our position is better, it could be our position is worse, but we just don't know. And also why this isn't part of our budget process in February when we're only 6 months into the financial year.
I'll ask Stephen Quinn, Chief Executive, to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll answer the part around budget and then I'll defer to Katrina, who will explain why now. The first part around budget, we're well aware, of course, all as we await the UK budget and then thereafter the Scottish budget, which will follow. I would love to sit here and think that there may be an opportunity that we no longer have a financial gap to close next year. Our best estimates at the moment, as we have publicised to you and gone through it, we're sitting at somewhere in the region of 14.5 million. Now things change, we recognise that can go up, it can go down. What I am pretty clear on is that there is literally no chance that it will change by 14.5 million. We have to be realistic that we have a financial gulf, and whilst that financial gulf that we have to close next year may change due to budgets of UK and Scottish Government, I think within here we can all understand and recognise that it will not change by £14.5 million. And therefore that's why we believe as officers, and we're putting to members this evening, and will continue to do so, as has been the way of doing it in previous years, of bringing some of the decisions earlier of some of the considerations earlier for decision. This is one of them that we're bringing this evening because we know there is going to be a financial gap. We just don't know the actual extent of that, but we do know it is going to be significant. And I'll pass over to Katrina, who will go through the why now. Okay.
Ultimately, what we want is a very smooth and effective transition to the new arrangement, and that does require an extensive amount of communication to our residents, number one, in terms of them understanding the change, what impact it might have, so that people can make a very informed and considered decision and don't feel it's a rushed decision. So having that extra time to have a really effective communications campaign will allow us for this transition to be successful. Secondly, we have our teams and our staff and the communication with them and taking them through the journey of this change and working with them effectively. And then for the management team within the Waste Service, there's a whole series of route development planning that needs to go on as part of this. This is a big part of our service, and it will require extensive planning in order that this is a smooth transition.
Does that answer the question?
It does, but that doesn't mean I'm happy about it. I know what you're saying about it being early decisions, but I don't think we've ever made budget decisions in October in the past, not quite this early, and certainly these environment ones would have been the February, but I've made my thoughts known. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm now going to go to Councillor MacDonald, but I've added Councillor Buchanan to the list, and again, please indicate if you wish to speak. Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Provost. Just wanted to highlight or actually echo Councillor Lundy's comments, particularly around the seasonal impact on this service. The proposal is to reduce from 50 to 25 uplifts, and I just wonder whether, I did mention this at the last meeting about the frequency of the uplifts in the summer months staying the same, where the winter months. My proposal, I believe at the time, was that May to September we would keep the frequency of 1 week weekly uplifts. People in East Renfrewshire, I would argue, actually do a great service to their community in tending to their gardens, and people like to keep their gardens looking nice and well kept, and it contributes to the overall attractiveness of East Renfrewshire as a whole. And I think the people that want to tend to their gardens, and many do in East Renfrewshire, should be commended for their efforts in that regard. I will say, though, having conversations with refuse collectors personally about the weekly service in the winter months, is that they feel that it's unnecessary, in the sense that most of the waste that goes in the brown bins in the winter months is food waste. And of course, with the colder months, that's not such of an issue, because obviously the temperature allows for amounts of food to be put in these bins and not have impacts that it would do in the summer months. So my proposal at the time was that we would continue to have a weekly service in the months between May and September, approximately about 20 uplifts. And then in the winter months between October and the likes of April, the colder months, we decreased down to a bi-weekly service where it would account for a further approximately 14 uplifts to make a total of 34 uplifts. So a reduction from 50 down to 34, I would think, would adequately meet the needs of the seasonal changes within East Renfrewshire. My concern is, and I see it happening frequently, is that people are resorting to putting garden waste in their grey bin, in black bags very often. And also we have the impact as well of illegal dumping, of which black bags of garden waste are impossible to trace in terms of them being dumped out in areas, and also for the fact as well that not everybody has the ability to go to the dump. Not everybody has a car, not everybody has the means to go to a dump. I just think we should be looking at a service that looks at the possibility of having continuous weekly service during the summer months and a bi-weekly service between October and April, reducing from 50 to 34. I think that would be the most common sense approach going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor MacDonald. Your comments are noted about your preferred alternative. I'm wondering, did you wish to propose an amendment?
Well, I would, in fact, like to propose an amendment. I haven't actually sized up any of my colleagues to find out if there's any support for such a proposal, but I do feel that if we were to reduce to 50 to 34, it would be very welcome for our residents. So I would encourage anybody, if they're minded to share my opinion on this, that they might want to second me on an amendment. Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald, has been suggested that Mrs Macaulay could address the challenges within what you've said, and that might affect your course of action. Mrs Macaulay.
Of course.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. You raised a number of issues and suggestions there. I think it's very clear to us that we wouldn't be able to achieve the saving that is proposed in the report if we moved to the seasonal service, and that's mainly because we couldn't reduce our fleet, which we would require to do to make the saving, and we would also require to continue to do the food collection out with the summer period. So there would be no saving. We wouldn't be able to reduce our staffing or our fleet not during the summer periods. So the saving would not be able to be effective. On the issue of fly tipping, and we are aware that that is often something that is cited, but since the introduction of garden waste permits in 2021, we have not seen any increase in fly tipping, and we don't anticipate any increase as a result of the change that's proposed. And obviously other areas across Scotland have a fortnightly service, and there is no evidence to suggest that the move to fortnightly will increase fly tipping.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Just for clarification, you'll have to forgive me, I haven't read the report in depth and length, and I just wanted some clarification. Is it the proposal to keep the price at the same amount for the reduction in service? And therefore, would there be any further consideration for aligning with other local authorities charge a higher amount? I know Councillor Ireland had mentioned Western Bartonshire are charging £60 for the year. So is there any consideration at all in a modest increase whereby we would afford the opportunity for 34 collections throughout the year? As I said, 20 in the summer months, 14 in the colder months, and also an increase? Thank you.
Mrs Macaulay.
The proposal that the officers have considered after looking at all of the evidence and the information is the content of the report tonight, which is the move to go to fortnightly service. So after having assessed a number of options and benchmarked with other local authorities, we can see that East Renfrewshire is an outlier, and we're bringing forward the proposal to move to fortnightly. So it's our judgment within the service that that is the best option to put here tonight to members to consider, and that would allow us to achieve the saving. As a service, like the rest of the Council, we're under pressure to identify where we can make savings, and this is the proposal that the service are advocating and recommending to members.
Thank you. Just to check, Councillor MacDonald, you did receive access to the papers? All right.
I did receive access to the papers. I just haven't looked at them in great depth. I apologise for that.
Okay, so I just pause you there because I'm going to bring Councillor Buchanan in, but I will come back to you to see if you would be in agreement to see how this goes with this proposal. But I'll bring Councillor Buchanan in first of all, if that's okay with you. But I will come back to you. Councillor Buchanan.
Okay, thanks, Provost. Yeah, I think a lot of very practical and positive comments have been made in relation to the paper, and I thank Katrina and her team for bringing forward the paper. And it lays out very clearly and in a straightforward manner the costs and the challenges that we face. I do have some concerns, and Councillor Ross touched on it, Chief Executive touched on it, as did Councillor Bamford. And it's in relation, I suppose, to the timing and the context of it and the paper being taken at this stage. I fully acknowledge that the likelihood is that this is a decision that would need to be made. But I think we're taking it to some extent in isolation in respect of other authorities, and we know there's a very clear comparison there about what we deliver and what other authorities deliver. But I also think that those authorities, as was touched on earlier, will probably be making amendments in their forthcoming budgets to amend some of what's there. My concern is around the context of it, and Councillor Wallace touched on it. We know there are extremely challenging circumstances that we face. We know that there will be a budget gap. The figure, probably around 15 million, that could change, could go higher, could come down slightly, but it will not necessarily take away the full quantity. There are a number of things. We know there are other priorities that I suspect would take credence, if you like, over brown bin charges. But I also think that in terms of taking a decision just now, and whether things do become statutory and funding comes in terms of whether there are changes to the budget that we do see, and it's not saying that we would then enable this not to be changed. The chances are some amendment will need to be taken. And my sole concern is really around the timing and taking a decision just now. On that basis, Provost, I would like to propose an amendment, which is that we continue with noting the paper and the work that has gone into it. I know that a communication charge, a communication strategy will be ongoing, and I think that work can still take place despite a full decision. And I would suggest that at Part B, that we propose that we defer the final decision until further information in relation to the 25-26 budget is available. Simply put, I think that would be a way forward. It would also allow us greater time to put it into context to our residents and the problems that we are facing as a council, and are probably likely to face, given forthcoming announcements of both the UK budget and then the Scottish Government budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you very much, Provost. As my colleague Councillor Wallace alluded to earlier, I was indeed Chair of Audit and Scrutiny when this was previously discussed in quite extraordinary detail. At that point in time, the charge was £40 as introduced, and there was a proposal to increase it to 60. There was a compromise on the level of 50, and I note that going from that increase, there was a drop of around 1,000 permits. Now, I fully recognise that we do need to make savings, and £356,000 barely touches the size of the 15 million that we do need to find. And I do worry that with a delay, we would not achieve the full saving which is set out in the paper. And indeed, it could result in an increase in the costs of the garden waste permit, even with a fortnightly service. I think that this is something that we do need to keep under review. However, I will add that caveat, because to save £356,000, permits at £52.20 each, we only need 6,800 people to leave the service, and all of that saving is lost. So I think that we do need to perhaps review this in a year's time to ensure that there's no increase in environmental health pressures as a result of vermin, for example, attracted to domestic properties, that there's no decrease in recycling rates, and that we haven't seen an adverse movement in the terms of permit uptakes. Because if all of these things aligned, we could potentially be moving from a weekly service to a fortnightly service, but not achieving the savings that this paper sets out. So I think it would be good to perhaps have another paper a year from now to review that has actually achieved what we hope to achieve. But having said that, I fully recognise that we do have to achieve these savings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morrison. So can we be assured that there will be a review? Councillor O'Donnell.
Were you asking me for a review? I don't think you were. So, just to clarify, I've got a lot of sympathy with a lot of the conversation that's gone on here today. You know, it's a very emotive subject, very personal to those who do have brown bins. I think the question of statutory services is absolutely interesting. I think we can all probably guess with near 100% certainty that the Scottish Government is not going to fund a statutory service, or if they were going to fund, it's not going to fill our costs. And that may be a policy intent. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. It would be my guess. I've got sympathy with Councillor Buchanan's comments on the timing of this. It sort of suggested that let's wait because we may want to put the prices up higher. I know you didn't say that, but there was a sort of suggestion, well, why wait and not get on with it unless you actually wanted to charge a little bit more? And there may well be merits in that, as Councillor MacDonald has raised, and we do expect other councils to increase their charges over time. However, I think what impacts me the most on this whole debate is really the timing and the logistics of getting on with it. Moving from weekly to bi-weekly is no mean feat in terms of the route planning, organisations of the team, dealing with the agency staff we currently have. We know the challenge we had when we were simply putting a price increase in and we missed the timing on that due to audit call-in 2 years ago, and that meant we couldn't affect that changed from until May rather than April. So I really would press us just to get on and make this decision. Let the officers organise with peace of mind that this will happen. And I'm sure we will review this, and I don't think it's a big thing to offer or to give in terms of reviewing this, because it has been quite an important issue for this council. So I'm sure we'll all be keen to see what the results of that. I think one thing that is interesting when we look at the month 5 results actually are there's an increase in the number of bins being used compared to budget. I'm not sure how it compares to the prior year, but it's slightly above budget. So with the price increase we had last year, you know, in terms of what we're budgeted for take-up, that seems to be okay. Small numbers in the whole scheme of things. So I would just urge Council to approve the motion that's here in front of us today and let officers deliver this change in service.
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor MacDonald. Councillor MacDonald, do you want to put forward an amendment about seasonal uplift, or are you happy to leave it?
I don't want to put up an amendment of my own. I do, however, feel in agreement with Councillor Buchanan's proposal to put up his own amendment. I just feel there's going to be real public pushback on this. There's always been public pushback on this particular issue, but I think this particular change, particularly around the summer months, I don't think it's adequately going to meet the demands of what people expect in the summer months for garden waste. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board and look at this, potentially a modest price increase if that is required in order to meet the needs of the service, but also adequately providing a service that meets the needs of the people during particularly the summer months. I think there needs to be more time on this, especially around the comments that Councillor Buchanan made in terms of the timings of this and going forward closer to when we can make a better assessment from a budget standpoint. So I would like to second, if Councillor Buchanan is proposing an amendment, I would like to second his proposals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going back to confirm that Councillor Buchanan still wants to put forward that amendment and he's nodding in agreement. So there is an amendment to defer, seconded by Councillor MacDonald, and the proposer of the report is Councillor O'Donnell. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Provost. As we have a motion and amendment, we will now go to our roll call vote. I'll call out the names of each councillor in turn, and if you can indicate your preference by saying the words either motion for Councillor O'Donnell's motion, amendment for Councillor Buchanan's amendment, or abstain. Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Motion.
Councillor Bamforth.
Amendment.
Councillor Buchanan.
Amendment.
Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Convery.
Amendment.
Councillor Cunningham.
Motion.
Councillor Edlin.
Motion.
Councillor Ireland.
Amendment.
Councillor Lundy.
Amendment.
Councillor MacDonald.
Amendment.
Councillor McLean.
Motion.
Provost Montague.
Motion.
Councillor Morrison.
Motion.
Councillor O'Donnell.
Motion.
Councillor Pragnell.
Motion.
Councillor Wallace.
Motion.
The votes are for the motion 10, for the amendment 6. The motion is accordingly carried.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Moving to the next item, which is item 11, changes to organisational remits of the environment, and that's pages 107 to 112. And Louise Pringle is here. She's the Director of Business Operations and Partnerships, and Katrina Macaulay, Director of Environment. They are here to answer any questions. Are there any questions, colleagues? None? Can we agree the report? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. On to item 11. Armed Forces Covenant and Supporting Activities, pages 113 to 118. And I'd like to invite Councillor Kate Campbell in her role as Armed Forces Champion to speak to the paper. Louise Pringle is also here. If there are any further questions, I'll hand out to Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Provost. As Armed Forces Champion, I'm delighted to see this report brought to Council to highlight all the positive work that is being carried out with regards to supporting our armed forces and in particular our veterans in the East Renfrewshire area. The Council is committed to the Armed Forces Covenant and supports our service personnel in many ways. This is achieved by working collaboratively across the Council, HSCP, East Renfrewshire Culture and Leisure Trust and partner organisations to ensure the appropriate care and services are provided. Our officers work to improve the offering by looking to secure funding through charity bids and ensuring signposting of resources to all who require support. The Health for Heroes programme, offering free fitness membership, is unique to local authorities and leisure trusts in Scotland, and the free gym membership, offered by East Renfrewshire, was the first of its kind in the UK. Alongside this, a quarterly Veterans Breakfast Club, financially supported by the British Legion, has been introduced. These resources have a positive effect on veterans' mental health and return to civilian life. The Council is now pursuing the Ministry of Defence's Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, Gold Recognition Award. We already have silver accreditation. This recognises the positive role that employers play in supporting defence and inspiring others to do the same. As an employer, the Council will ensure that we proactively demonstrate our positive policies to meet the required criteria. This is a good news story, and I'm delighted to say that many aspects of the Gold Recognition Award criteria are already recognised within our Council as a good and fair employer. I'd like to recommend that Council recognises all the work that we do to assist our armed forces and veterans in East Renfrewshire and supports the officers to work towards achieving the Gold Recognition Award. Thank you.
Microphone just won't go off. Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell, both for your involvement and support, and all the officers and everybody involved in this paper. I would also like to mention the role of member services. Those who attend the flag-raising ceremonies will recognise the work that they do in their engagement and support for veterans, their families and representative organisations. So again, it nods to all the good work that is being done in our council and with partners. So on that note of thanks, can we agree the report? Sorry, Councillor O'Donnell.
Just a couple of comments out of the report that I would like to point out. Firstly, clearly I welcome this report, and I think the ambition to achieve gold award standard is the right approach. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Trust for being the first and the only place in Scotland to offer the free membership to GYM. I know that was mentioned in your comments, but I think that's been done underneath the radar, and the Trust have just gone on and done that, so well done to the Trust. And the second thing I'd like to point out is thanks to the Royal British Legion and their work to effectively purchase a house. They first approached the Provost and then myself, and I'm really delighted to see that that is progressing with Barrhead Housing Association. I'm really looking forward to see that happening, and that's obviously a very, very generous donation, so many thanks to the Royal British Legion for progressing on that front. That's all I'd like to add.
Thank you. Can we agree the report? Oh, sorry. Councillor Bamforth.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate that for all the supports that are in place, but particularly to Jane Duncan, because we know how much work Jane Duncan does in East Renfrewshire and Renfrewshire, and a lot of it goes unnoticed because a lot of people in the council have never met Jane or know of her role. But I'd like to personally thank Jane for all her work.
And can you remind us of Jane's job title, please, Councillor?
The Veteran Support Officer. She's an ex-veteran herself and her husband.
She is indeed. Thank you very much. Can we agree the report, colleagues? Thank you very much. And on that note, thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham. That concludes the business for today. Thank you very much for your attendance and for all the input by officers into the reports today. Thank you.